Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar, Start the Week with Spencer. During this weekly webinar, parents join from all around the world to ask questions about their children. At Doman International, we specialize with children with special needs, and we teach families holistic treatments that they can do at home to help their children in every area of development. So that includes improving speech development and mobility and improving the sensory areas and learning abilities. And so parents join, they ask us questions about the Doman Method, about their children's specific challenges, and I do my best to provide them with answers. So wherever you are joining me, whether you're on Instagram, YouTube, or on Facebook, go ahead and start typing the questions into the chat box and I'll get to them in order. I wanted to get started with a question that was actually pre-submitted, and one parent asked, "What is the safe and sound protocol?" Probably the parent heard me talk about this protocol in earlier sessions. The safe and sound protocol is a treatment that Doman International has incorporated for about the last 5 years. And let me start by just telling you a bit of the story behind this program. So actually, I was approached by a mother on the program. She was in Serbia, and her child had had really great results with the Doman Method. He diagnosed with autism. And the mom approached me and she said, Spencer, I'm doing this other program called the Safe and Sound Protocol. Uh, and I feel like it's very complementary with the Doman Method, and my child's been getting very good results. So I was impressed, and I heard her out. I am a little skeptical about new things because there's so many new treatments out there for kids with special needs that do nothing. And so I noted it and said thanks. I looked into it a bit and then kind of forgot about it. And probably 2 months later, another mom came to me. This mom was from India. She said, Spencer, it's crazy. I found this program called the Safe and Sound Protocol, and we've been doing it in conjunction with the Doman Method, and my child got great results with it. And when I hear something from one person, one parent, I'll take a note of it. But when I hear it from two parents, now I start to take it seriously. And so that's what kind of started me looking into the Safe and Sound protocol, and very soon it became adopted as a part of our program. A lot of people don't realize the Doman Method. The last time we sat down and counted the number of different programs and pro-developmental activities that we use, we counted more than 400 different techniques that Doman International uses with children. So the Safe and Sound protocol is now one of those 400. And so I, took a course. I became certified in the Safe and Sound protocol, and we basically never looked back. The Safe and Sound protocol has proved to be a very effective addition to the rest of the Doman Method program because it helps address the underlying root cause of the problems of many children with special needs. And it can be very helpful for children with speech problems, children who have issues with hyperactivity, focus problems, issues with anxiety or irritability, auditory hypersensitivity. So it can really help a host of different issues. Let me talk a little bit about how the program is done. It's pretty simple in practice. All a family needs are over-the-ear headphones. So these are headphones that cover the entire ear, and you need a phone, okay? And you need access to the application where the Safe and Sound protocol is provided. The Safe and Sound protocol is a music program, and the music is specially formulated to develop different brain abilities, which are very important. The first thing that it does is it stimulates the inner ear muscles. So, the way that all of us hear for all the sounds of our environment and understand speech is we have inner ear muscles that absorb sound frequencies, right? So sound frequencies are waves, and our muscles, inner ear muscles, which are very small and thin, literally absorb these sound frequencies, and that's how we hear sounds and speech around us. The problem is for many children with special needs, they have rigid inner ear muscles. The inner ear muscles are literally spastic, they're tight. And the problem is because their purpose is to absorb sound, if they are tight and spastic, they absorb sound differently. In fact, some sound frequencies may bounce off, okay, and the child may not even hear those frequencies, and other frequencies are absorbed too much, which creates a hypersensitivity and oversensitivity to sounds. Sometimes a mom will say to me, "Hey, Spencer, why does my child, I have to shout his name 10 times for him to turn around, and yet if I open a bag of chips 5 rooms away, he comes running." And it's because there are literally certain sounds, certain frequencies that he's hearing and others that he's not. And that's why the same child may not respond to their name being called, but the sound of a blender is incredibly painful for them because they're hypersensitive to certain frequencies. And so the first thing the Safe and Sound protocol does is it helps reduce that auditory hypersensitivity by stimulating those inner ear muscles. The second thing the Safe and Sound protocol does is it helps stimulate cranial nerve 7, which is the cranial nerve that controls the muscles of our mouth. So, for example, the muscles that control our ability to make facial expressions or our ability to move our tongues, all of these things are impacted, controlled by cranial nerve 7. So when we do this program, we often see an improvement in things like chewing, eating, and speaking. Last but not least, the music is formulated to stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve controls our human fight or flight response. Most people have heard of fight or flight. It's basically the human reaction to when we feel there's a threat, right? When we're scared by something, we tend to either fight it, right? Or flight, meaning run away. So that's an internal, it's a response that almost all animals have. It's a pro-survival response. The problem is if your vagus nerve doesn't work properly, which is often a consequence of the brain not working properly, the vagus nerve sends out threat responses to the body even when there is no threat. So for example, this in many children creates a form of anxiety where they might be afraid of things. They might be worried all the time. They might avoid social situations. Some children handle their anxiety by being irritable. If you have the kind of child who says no to everything, you say, "Hey, let's do this new thing." And they go, "No, no. That's that's an anxiety response, a fear response of, "No, I don't want to do something new because it's threatening to me." So very often when we do the Safe and Sound protocol, it helps the vagus nerve work properly. That decreases the threat responses. And all of a sudden, that child who before might have been very irritable, very closed off, very socially disengaged, all of a sudden they become more socially engaged, more relaxed, less irritable, happier. And all of these things for many children play a big role in their progress. And so that's why we've added it to the Doman Method. The program is often used with children with an autism diagnosis, but at Doman International, we've found it to be helpful for children with many issues. We've found it to be helpful for certain children. For example, one of the big surprises to us was it helped many of our children with balance issues. We had certain children who weren't walking, even though we had been doing our treatment for a long time. They hadn't learned how to walk yet, and we started Safe and Sound protocol. It helped their walking, and I think that's because the inner ear plays a big role in balance, so it helped their balance development as well. So it can help a wide range of children. We don't do the Safe and Sound protocol with everyone. It's children with specific symptoms who can benefit from it, and but it has become an important addition to our program for the children that need it. Okay, for everyone who's joining us late, I got a pre-submitted question about what the Safe and Sound protocol is. And now I'm going to open this up to other questions. I'm going to open this up to other questions. I see comment here on Instagram from Psalm6819 who says, "That's my son." Haha. So interesting to get this explained. Yeah. And for me, when I learned about the Safe and Sound protocol, it really helped answer a lot of the underlying problems for children that I didn't quite understand. Like, why are certain children so mentally rigid? Why are they so stubborn? Why aren't they interested in engaging with others socially? And it's because the vagus nerve doesn't work properly. And very often, you see, the vagus nerve it's the longest cranial nerve that we have. It connects our brain with the inner ear muscles. Okay, that's why the Safe and Sound protocol can be helpful to stimulate the vagus nerve, because the nerve literally runs through those muscles. And then, by the way, it runs down our necks, the vagus nerve, and it even connects with our heart, our lungs, even our bowel and bladder are connected with the vagus nerve. So, and that's because the vagus nerve is there to communicate with our whole body when there's a threat. And so the vagus nerve is incredibly important, right? The vagus nerve is what helps us cross a busy avenue in New York, right? Because your vagus nerve starts sending signals, hey, there are cars everywhere, be on alert, be careful, you don't want to get hit. So the vagus nerve is very important, but the problem is if it's not working properly, then all of a sudden you've got an individual who's constantly on edge. And the problem is when a person is constantly on edge because the vagus nerve isn't working properly, one of the only ways to calm yourself is through movement. Because, it's think about all of us know one person in our life who's so anxious they never stop moving. They're always doing something, right? And it's because for them, literally sitting, if they have to sit with their thoughts for a few seconds, it drives them crazy and they have to get up and start moving. So movement is a very good way of actually stimulating the vagus nerve and helping calm the entire nervous system. So what happens when a child's vagus nerve isn't working properly? Very often they handle that by being in constant movement all over, and so if you've got a hyperactive child who's never focused, often that's driven by poor function of the vagus nerve. Okay. And by the way, for everyone who's joining us now and is just kind of learning about the Doman method for the first time, if you're interested in learning more, about our programs, like I said, the Safe and Sound protocol is one of 400 techniques that we use. It's actually one of the newest programs we've added. But if you want to see the techniques and programs that we've been using for, in some cases, 60 plus years, check out this book, The Doman Method: From Special Needs to Wellness. We go into our whole holistic system of programs there. The book is very practical. It goes into many things that you can start with your children at home right away. All right, I see we've got Colleen here. Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
So for everyone who hasn't met Colleen yet, Colleen is our director of representatives. So she's the first person who speaks to new families when they come to Doman International for the first time.
That's right. Yeah. And it's my pleasure.
So Colleen, my question to you is about books. I got a question recently from a parent asking about what is the first Doman method book that they should start with if they want to learn more. And we do have a lot of books. The last time I counted, I think we have over 10 different Doman method books. So out of interest, what do you usually tell parents when they ask you what the first book is to read?
So I tell parents, if their child has a definite diagnosis of autism or autism spectrum disorder, Answering Autism is the best book to start with. Sometimes parents are concerned that they'll miss something if they're not reading the Doman Method book, and I explain, no, the Doman Method is, the foundation of it is the same for everybody because all of us have a brain, a human brain. But when it comes to children on the autism spectrum, their issues generally are not getting them to walk. And the Doman Method book has a fair amount in there about if your child is immobile or has a lot of mobility issues. So the autism answering autism book just answers those more sensory things, doesn't spend as much time in the mobility sector, but you don't miss anything. For parents who are really maybe not sure what their child's diagnosis is yet, it might be a lot of things. The Doma Method book, I think, is the best place to start.
Great. Thanks, Colleen. Okay, let's see if we've got any questions. So yeah, if you're joining me right now on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, go ahead and type your question into the comments box and we will get to them in order. I had some pre-submitted questions on Instagram. Let's see what some of these questions were. Yeah, I got one question that was pre-submitted by Jan, and the question is, can any child be helped? Could a child with any issue be helped? And you know, it's a good question, and I think I have to kind of clarify when I see a question like, can all children be helped? Obviously, I have to ask, when you say all, are we talking about any health issue? The Doman method can help any child that has a neurodevelopmental problem. So an issue where the root cause is in the brain. So now there are literally hundreds of different diagnoses given to children who have neurodevelopmental issues. The most common ones are autism, ADD, cerebral palsy, learning difficulties, dyslexia, epilepsy, developmental delay, speech delay, and many, many more. And then there are many also genetic conditions like Down syndrome and other genetic diagnoses that are given that also impact brain development. So anytime where brain development is impacted, the Doman method can be helpful because we understand that the root cause of the problem is in the brain. And so over the last 70 years, we've been both developing and finding ways to improve brain development through a phenomenon called neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change. And so the Doman method program, in a sense, could be called the neuroplasticity program because that is what we are trying to achieve. And when the brain develops better and more fully, the symptoms start to go away, right? The things that we observe in children every day, whether it's speech problems, comprehension issues, mobility, coordination problems, seizures in some cases, those symptoms can start to go away because the root cause problem in the brain is finally being addressed. So yeah, for a child with any kind of neurodevelopmental issue, they can be helped by the Doman method. Now, in Jan's question, she asked, can all children be helped? And, obviously there are many, for example, there's some children that come to us and they might have some kind of muscular condition, that we may be unable to help, or a degenerative condition that we may be unable to help. But what I would say to parents is reach out to us, talk to one of our representatives, talk to Colleen, for example, tell the representative what the diagnosis is. And in many cases, they'll say, oh, absolutely. Like, we've helped many children with that diagnosis. Or if it's something they've never heard of before or unsure, they will bring it to our clinical director, who will then, and our clinical director is Rosalind Doman, my mom, who's been doing this for 45 years and has seen literally every single neurodevelopmental diagnosis that exists. And we can usually give a very speedy response to a family if they can be helped, if the child can be helped or not. And in the vast majority of cases, the answer is yes, because most of the time, by the time parents get to us, they've already realized there are many things that can help their child, and so they found us out because they're looking for an approach which is brain-centered. All right, we've got a question here from Ashley on Instagram. And Ashley is asking, what about Down syndrome? What book is best? So, yeah, the best book for a child with a Down syndrome diagnosis is this one, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. You can find it on Amazon. You can see it's written by my dad, Douglas, and I. And I'm trying, sorry, the text on the screen is getting in the way. So, yeah, if you go to Amazon, you can search Doman Method. It'll be the first thing that pops up for you. There are other books that can be helpful for a child with Down syndrome. Probably the first one that comes to mind would be How to Teach Your Baby to Read is great if you want to teach your child to read before their school age. The Doman Method has a long history of teaching children with Down syndrome to read, even at the age of 2 or 3, well before their school age. It's something we're very proud of. I don't know of any other treatment organization or therapy that can say that we have children with Down syndrome who now have master's degrees. I've never heard anyone else say that. And it's because we've been doing it for a long, long time. And maybe this is a good opportunity, since we're talking about children specifically with Down syndrome. Let me talk about two things. First, about why the Doman Method can help children with genetic conditions. And maybe also I'll talk for a second about the history of our work with children with Down syndrome. So why can the Doman Method help children with genetic conditions? Interestingly, when my grandfather, Glenn Doman, started this work, he did not accept children with genetic diagnoses. I'm talking about back in the 1950s. And the reason why is he was so widely attacked in the first place for saying the brain could change, which we all know now is scientifically, it's proven that the human brain can change. But he was so widely attacked for that in the 50s that it was considered, outrageous, outrageous claim that the brain could change. He was attacked so much for that, he realized, well, if I'm going to also claim that children with genetic conditions can also be helped, I'll be thrown into an insane asylum, right? And so he said, plus there are enough children as it is with neurodevelopmental issues. Let me just focus on them. And a doctor by the name of Raimundo Veras, a Brazilian doctor, actually came to my grandfather's clinic with his own son. His son had been in a diving accident and had, lost all movement in his arms and legs. And through my grandfather's program, his son was able to regain, all function in his arms. So literally went from being paralyzed in the arms to being able to use his arms, which is anyone who has been around people who have lost function in their arms, it's completely life-changing. I mean, being able to function in this world without use of your arms is really, really tough. And his son, Zakarlis, went on to, go on to do amazing things himself, became a physician, and in fact help many children with special needs as his father had. So when Dr. Veras saw this progress in his own son, he went to my grandfather and said, I want to bring the Doman Method to Brazil. And he said, and also I want to start this work with children with Down syndrome. And my grandfather said, go ahead, give it a try. And that was really the start of the Doman Method being used with children with genetic conditions. And Dr. Veras very quickly found that these children had amazing results. And when my grandfather saw the incredible things that were happening, he said, well, I can't deny this any longer. And he started to do it himself. My grandfather was so touched by what Dr. Veras did with children with Down syndrome. He called children with Down syndrome Veras children. And he did that first in honor of Dr. Veras, because he felt Veras had done amazing things to help these children. But also, he found it very interesting that Down syndrome is named after, a researcher with the last name Down, who didn't respect these children, who thought they were stupid. And my grandfather said, why are we naming a condition after someone who resented the very people that he claimed to be an expert in? And so he said we should name this condition after someone who truly respected these children. And so he called them Veros children in honor of Dr. Veros. And so the reason, my grandfather didn't know this at the time because he couldn't have known with the science that was available. All he knew was this program is helping these children. It's helping their brain development. I don't know how this program can help children with genetic issues, but it's helping their brains. That's what he knew. Now, with some of the some of the research that's been done over the last 10 to 20 years, we know that there's something called epigenetics, where every person has their own genome, their own genetic sequence, but there are proteins that decide what genes are turned on and expressed and what genes are not expressed. But you may not be aware of this, but over 80% of our genetics, our specific genome, is not expressed. It's basically there, but it's not doing anything. And scientists call it junk DNA. I'm not saying it's junk, but it's just sitting there and it's not doing anything. Well, these proteins decide what genes are expressed and which ones aren't. And what impacts these proteins? Well, how much stimulation the person receives, the amount of physical exercise they do, the amount of oxygen that they're breathing in, their environment, how stimulating it is. All of these things impact what genes are expressed and which ones aren't. And so our theory with the Doman method is what's happening is as we're doing stimulation with these children, these proteins, this epigenetic factor is selecting very, good functioning genes to be expressed, and others, problematic ones are not being expressed. And of course, we're also at the cellular level in the brain, helping the brain function better. So I just went into a bit of history about why the Doman method for 7 years has been helpful with with children with Down syndrome. And I definitely recommend for anyone with a child with this diagnosis to look further into our program. All right, I've got a question here from Maria. Maria says, hi, Spencer. My child is less sensitive to sounds after several months of doing the auditory stimulation program. Actually, she shows no reaction to most of the sounds that she is exposed to. So, Maria, let me give you an answer based on the information that I have. First of all, I'm very happy that she's less sensitive to the sounds after you've been doing our auditory program. Now, in terms of showing no response to sounds, there's really two possibilities here. The first possibility is that that she's not hearing all the sounds, and maybe that's why she's not responding to them. The second possibility is that she's bored of the sounds. And this is something, I'll get this kind of question from a parent every once in a while, where they begin the Doman method auditory stimulation program. For those of you who don't know what that is, we recommend to parents with children with real auditory processing issues where they're not hearing sounds or locating them well, to provide different kinds of sounds in the environment to stimulate the child's hearing. Sometimes a parent will say to me, Spencer, we started the auditory stimulation program 3 months ago, and my child started responding better and better and better. And then all of a sudden, my child stopped responding to the sounds, and I'm really afraid. And most of the time when I talk to the parents, we come to the realization together that the child is just bored. And so the child is because if you're doing different environmental sounds like, ringing a bell or, shaking a rattle, a child for some period will be interested. And then at a certain point, they know what's going on and they'll start to kind of ignore you. Which, if you think about it, is a kind of a mature response. If you're used to something in your environment, why should you pay very close attention to it? And so sometimes that's actually a part of the child's development. So, Maria, I don't know if you can write me back and tell me if you feel like that might be the situation. So, possibility number one, your child is hearing the sounds and is just bored. Now, possibility number two is that your child isn't consistently hearing the sounds. And if that was the case, I would recommend increasing the intensity of the stimulation by making sounds louder. And I'm supposing by your question, Maria, that you've taken the Doman Method course. In the Doman Method course, we talk about different kinds of stimulation. We talk about startle reflex stimulation, which is like a louder, sudden sounds. So if you feel like your child really is not hearing, it's not a boredom issue, it's a hearing problem, you may need to increase the intensity of the sound. By the way, for everyone who's interested in the auditory stimulation program, we do talk about it in the book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. It's one of the later chapters. I think it's chapter 15. Yeah, chapter 15. And then we also talk about auditory stimulation a lot in the Doman Method course, which is our online course. It's actually going on right now. I'll pull Colleen up in a second to talk about the 2025 schedule for the course. But the online Doman Method course, we teach parents how to do all of these different kinds of visual, auditory, tactile stimulation, in addition to many other programs to help improve a child's sensory ability. I see we got a comment here from a Facebook user. I guess there's no name here, but wow, amazing info on genome. Thanks for sharing. Sure, yeah, epigenetics means, epi means above. So epigenetics means above genetics. And it really is an amazing field because for so long, it was thought humans are our genetics. And now we know that's far from the case, that our very genetics themselves can be impacted by the environment that we are in. Colleen, is this a good time for us to ask you just to talk us through about the Doman Method course, maybe when it's coming up? Because I know we just started one. Could you talk about what the plan is moving forward?
Yes, for sure, for sure. So yes, we did just start a course in English. We have two courses in English actually. One answering autism, and one the online Doman Method course. And the divide is the same as for the books. If your child's diagnosis is autism or autism spectrum disorder, something like that, then the autism course is going to give you everything that you need. And if that's not your child's diagnosis, you can, of course, check in with the reps. They can help you out. But you don't miss anything from one or the other. All of the vital information is always included in both courses. So our plan right now for 2025 is our first course in English will be in February. It will start February 3rd. We will also have a course in Serbian in February. And then after that, we will have Italian and Spanish in March. We'll have Russian in April. Then we will have another English course in May, and then Italian and Serbian in June, Spanish and Russian in July, English again in August, Italian in September, and an answering autism course in September as well with Italian. Spanish and Russian in October, and then Serbian and English to round out the end of the year. We don't give courses over the Christmas break. We tried that a couple years ago, and it was a bad idea for everybody. So our courses typically run from February through about the first or second week in December, and then we start again. But sometimes parents will say, "Oh, well, I can wait then." And my feeling is, sure, if a time that you'll be more focused is later, that's great. But our course is designed to be very flexible. So it's a 5-week long course. And I would recommend, getting started as soon as possible with the information, because as soon as you have it, you're going to be able to start putting little things in place at home that can make a big difference for your child. The Doman Method grows as your child grows. So the sooner you can have the information, I think the better.
Great. Thanks, Colleen. I'm putting up your email address. Do you mind giving your phone number as well?
You bet. It's 814-232-8668. And that is a WhatsApp number as well as a normal phone number.
Perfect. I'm going to put that up. Hopefully I typed it. Did I type it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. One of these days I'll learn your phone number. Okay. So yeah, we received a question from Ashley that I threw up there for a second, which said, just bought and read the Doman Method book and loved it, wondering where to go next. So Ashley, yeah, we would recommend as the next step taking the Doman Method course.
Yeah, Ashley, if you and I haven't spoken yet, please message me or email me or just send us a DM. I answer all of those in English. So I would love to talk to you and we'll get you set up for the February course.
Yeah. Yeah, we have another question here. Had my child on the program and she's doing so well, fell off due to circumstances out of my control, and the regression is marked. She is turning 7 next year. Is there still hope for her? I know her potential, and I don't want to lose her to autism. So first of all, I'm sorry to hear that you saw some regression. Uh, and let me talk for a second. So let me answer your question, and then I'll say a few other thoughts. So first of all, is there still hope for her? Absolutely. In fact, the average age of a child starting our program is 6 to 8 years. That's the average. So we have many children starting the program quite a bit older than that. There's a young man on our program. I want to say he's 19 or 20, who has an autism diagnosis, and he just having amazing results after a year on the program. We just did some appointments in Italy, and there was a 30-year-old who, for the first time in his life with our program, is toilet trained. Just to give you an example, 30 years old, and it's all because of the progress that he's made. So absolutely, neuroplasticity exists throughout our lifetimes, and so 7 is a normal age for us. And so absolutely there's hope. I recommend you reestablish contact. I don't see your name here, but feel free to shoot an email to Colleen at info@domaninternational.org. And by the way, if you were on the program in the past, when a family's already done the program, we're not going to treat them like they're coming to us for the first time. We're going to try to pick up where we left off. And so, I'm really glad you're kind of reestablishing contact and coming back. And I do want to say, I don't know how many years ago you did the program. The program has changed a lot. It's over the last 5 years, we have added a lot of new programs. And so there's probably a lot of things that we have available for your child that we didn't have just for a few years ago. Now, let me talk a little bit about regression for a second, because there are a few words maybe that strike more fear into a parent of a child with special needs than regression. And I also get a lot of questions from parents about, even if we get a lot of progress with the Doman method, is it possible for my child to regress and lose some of the new abilities? And in my experience, the only time a child has a regression is usually because of course, it could happen to any person if they suffer a brain injury. But when we talk more specifically about children, for example, with autism or another kind of special needs, if they have a regression, it's usually because of something physiological happening with the child, meaning there's something in the child's going on in the child's maybe gut health. It could be something with the child's nutrition. It could be something happening in the child's metabolic pathways that is impacting brain development. And very often, if we can kind of drill down and figure out what that is, we can not only stop the regression from occurring, but also help the child make amazing results. So just to give everyone an example, there's a family who just came for an appointment in India, and their child was doing great, and all of a sudden started to lose some of the abilities that the child had achieved. This is a child with autism. And when they met with our nutrition team, it became pretty clear, based on the symptoms the child was having, that the child was having a specific physiological issue that was created by something called leaky gut, where the intestinal lining of the child, that certain particles were leaking out of the gut and into the blood. And so basically through certain changes in the child's diet, certain supplementation, we're able to kind of solve that gut issue and help the child, restart, their faster development. So yeah, I do want to say regression doesn't just occur on its own. And parents will actually say to me, they'll bring their child to a doctor and say, my child is regressing, my child's losing their speech, my child is becoming more aggressive. And the doctor will tell them, oh, that's just all part of your child. Like, that's because your child has autism, or that's because your child has Down syndrome. So they use the child's diagnosis as an excuse to take no action. And by the way, 99% of the time, it is not because of that. That's not an acceptable. There's something going on with that child that's creating the regression. If you can figure out what it is, you can resolve it. And it's just such a lazy way to handle an issue. And unfortunately, some children really get into trouble because of that attitude. Okay. So yeah, please, reach out, write Colleen at info@Doman International, and we'll see how we can get you restarted. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. Okay. I see Maria came back. We were talking before about her child's reaction to sounds. And I said, okay, your child's either bored or with the sounds or not hearing them. And she said she's definitely bored. We introduced different sounds, but it didn't help. Okay. So, it's very possible, Maria, that she's just outgrown the need for the program. And sometimes that happens, it's similar to, if a child is developing and maybe they like kind of like baby cartoons, but at a certain point you keep playing the same cartoons, they'll become bored of it and say, no, I'm beyond that now. Probably your child is just trying to send you a message with the auditory stimulation, like, I don't need this anymore. And so probably what you can do, Maria, is stop and kind of turn your focus toward other more sophisticated ways of stimulation. I'm not sure what other cognitive programs you're doing. I don't know if you've started a reading program yet, or you'll have to tell me, Maria, if you've started reading or math, but probably your child's ready for those Doman Method cognitive programs. And again, Maria, I'm not sure if Maria, maybe when you write me, in your next comment, also let me know, like, have you taken the course? Have you come for an appointment? I suspect you've done some level of one of our classes. I know many Marias, so I'm not sure which one you are. Okay. Yeah, this is a great comment. I know to accept the diagnosis, but not the prognosis. What you are saying makes a lot of sense. I will reach out. Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah, the diagnosis and prognosis. So prognosis, for everyone who doesn't know, is a prediction of, okay, you have a specific condition. The prognosis is this will happen. Very often, children with special needs are given really terrible prognosis, where the parents are told, your child has autism, your child has Down syndrome, your child has cerebral palsy, and therefore usually the word never will come in. Your child will never talk, or your child will never walk, or your child will always have seizures. Something, they'll be told something like that. And by the way, that's kind of what parents are commonly told. Best case scenario, the parents will be told, we don't know what's going to happen. Which, by the way, that's actually the honest answer, is telling the parent we don't. That's what doctors should tell parents. We don't know, and they should probably be honest too and say we don't know what to do about it. But very often they'll kind of saddle parents with a lot of hopelessness around, your child will never do this, this, and this, and it's very destructive. It's very destructive because it first of all, for many parents, not only does it create a hopelessness, parents then assume, well, the person that I've spoken to who's the expert has told me my child will never do this. So what's the point of even looking for answers? And this this is one of these topics that I always need to be a little careful about getting started on because I can work myself up. But almost every family we see, by the time they get to us, they've gone to see whoever the renowned expert is in their country. And usually they'll say to me, "Oh, we went to see the world's, the leading expert in my country of India, Croatia, Germany, it doesn't matter where they are." And they'll say, and they told me there's nothing we could do for our child. And we had to wait on a 9-month waiting list to get into a room with someone who told us there's no hope. What was the point of it all? And that's the typical situation that parents face. And my grandfather used to say, whenever he'd hear about an expert, he would say, "Oh yeah, they're the world's leading expert in having no idea what to do to help kids with special needs." So that it's kind of the it's a great sadness because it hurts a lot of kids. So yeah, don't necessarily you don't necessarily need to listen to those voices. All right, someone else is chiming in here. Maria, if I could chime in, as a parent who has experienced this with my daughter and reading, trust me, special needs kids are still just kids. I had to get creative with my daughter with the reading program. She got bored and just needed to be challenged for me to be more fun. Yeah, and I think that there are two really important things that you point out here. First of all, the importance of being fun, right? Things need to be joyous and relaxed. When children are, and in fact, all humans, when we are relaxed and happy, we learn fastest, not when we're stressed or anxious. And it's because when we're stressed or anxious, it puts us into something called the sympathetic state, which sympathetic sounds good, but actually it creates a kind of fight or flight response. So when we are fearful or anxious, and especially when kids are fearful or anxious, their learning abilities actually start to shut down. And so what you want to do is put the child into a parasympathetic state, which means they're relaxed and happy. And that's actually when they will learn at their fastest. So making the program joyous is really important. And then the other thing that is pointed out in that comment is the importance of challenge. There are actually 5 different things that have been demonstrated through research to create neuroplasticity. 5, these are general concepts, but they've been shown scientifically to change the human brain. Hopefully I can remember all 5 off the top of my head. So the first thing is challenge. And that's what made me think. And by the way, these 5 things were discovered by Marianne Diamond, who was a Stanford researcher, probably the best researcher of the 20th century in studying neuroplasticity. And she said the number one thing that drives changes in the brain is challenge. You have to challenge the person. It could be physical challenge. It could be intellectual challenge. But that's very important. The second thing is newness, meaning presenting something new to the person. For example, you'll often hear people say, if you do a Sudoku puzzle or a crossword, that's good for brain development. If you learn a musical instrument, it's new, it's good. That's true as long as it's still new and challenging to you. If you get to the point where you're very good at something and you're not challenged or finding anything new to learn, it doesn't actually impact your brain development anymore. So there's challenge, and then there's newness. The third thing is physical activity. Okay, so physical exercise is very, very good for driving brain plasticity. The fourth thing is nutrition. What we eat impacts the way our brain develops. And then the fifth and final thing is love. This has been shown both in humans, but also in other animals, that to the degree that they receive love, especially in the first years of life, very, very important for their brain plasticity. I always say to parents, we teach them how to do the first four things. The fifth thing they don't need us to teach them to do. But that's why our program really tries to incorporate all five of those things to maximize changes in the brain. Thanks for bringing that into the conversation. Well, Colleen, I think I'm gonna, hand it over to you. Any final things that you'd like to say before we end off?
Yeah, I guess as a parent, uh, we've been talking about the books and everything. Um, I think just if you're coming to the Doman Method new, read read the books or give me a call and we can talk about it, because as a parent, it's given me more confidence, you know, uh, in addressing things as they come up. So it's really important in that way. And my daughter doesn't have any special needs, but it's still parent, kids are kids. Um, she's not a kid anymore either. Uh, but yeah, the information is invaluable, and so even if you never take a course with us, or even if you never like do anything, the information all by itself can really inform the way that um, help your kid navigate the world, and that's like the biggest problem solving exercise that we have, is navigating the world. And so, as parents, our job is to help our kids as best we can to do that. And I think having this information, understanding how their brains are developing, can just give you that confidence that you need to make the right decisions for your child and your family.
Great. Thanks, Colleen. And I saw we got one last question that I'll throw up on the screen, which is my 9-month-old son is crawling beautifully, but loves to pull up to stand along furniture. How do I encourage him to creep on his hands and knees? Good question. And obviously, this parent already knows that crawling on the belly and creeping on the hands and knees are very important milestones for a child to do for their brain development. We talk about that a lot with the Doman method, the importance of crawling and creeping. And so, what I would say is, for children at this stage, if your child was creeping on the hands and knees already, I would just encourage you, let him creep as much as he wants. If he wants to pull up on furniture, let him do it. Just have him creep as much as possible. Now, this child is crawling and is pulling up on furniture, and I think this mom is a little concerned that the child will skip the creeping stage, which is a legitimate concern to have. And what I would propose, usually what we recommend to these parents, is actually to take the furniture in the center of the room and move it to the outsides. And so that way, what you can do with your baby is you put the baby down in the middle of the room, and your baby basically, because he's going to be driven to get to something to pull himself up onto the furniture, he's going to be forced to crawl over and get there. Because what he actually needs to do to get him creeping on the hands and knees, he just needs to crawl as much as possible. And by the way, you could also add some challenges, like having him crawl more on carpeted surface. Carpet creates a little more friction, a little bit more difficulty, so you could have him crawl on carpet. Some parents also have parents crawl over obstacles, like they put little mats or things that the child has to crawl over. These kind of things can help children learn to creep on their hands and knees. But yeah, I would just move furniture out of the middle of the room, put your child down, and then he has to move to get to wherever he wants to go. And do that as much as you can throughout the day. And then also, in the I'm not sure if this parent has a child with neurodevelopmental issues, but also I would recommend, in the book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, we do have several chapters for children who don't walk yet, and that might be helpful. We've got a question here. Is the book on autism available in audiobook? It is. Yeah, both the Doman Method book and Answering Autism are both available as audiobooks on Amazon. one final comment from my side. I wanted to let everyone know that I want to start doing something a little different with this webinar over the coming months. And that is, we're using software for this webinar that allows Colleen and I to get up and talk to all of you. But we could also have parents join the webinar as well and ask questions. So first of all, if you're interested in joining the webinar and getting to ask me some questions face to face, send us a message on, whatever social media platform you're watching us on. And I think it'll allow us to get into deeper conversations, and I'll be able to give more helpful recommendations. Because even we saw today, some of you ask questions and then I have to ask a follow-up question to get more information. And sometimes I think that if we were just able to talk face to face, we'd have a more helpful conversation, and it would help other parents listening as well, because they would get more out of the experience. So so basically what we're going to do over the coming weeks, I'm not sure exactly when we're going to do this. We'll start to have a link that parents can register for the event. They can join. You can get up on camera, ask me questions. We can have little conversations. I think it'll be better for everyone. All right. Everyone be well. And I think the next session is going to be next week. I'm just quickly checking my calendar. Yeah, we're going to do a session next week at the same time. Okay, I'll see you all then. Thanks so much, Colleen. Thank you.
So much. Bye.
Bye-bye.